Obviously, you are currently in a Big Four environment in audit, and I guess the perception is that everybody thinks that it's probably like 90% male, 10% female. But from your perspective, how do you find it being a female in a Big Four audit environment?
I think it depends what team you're on. So I've worked on some teams that are quite male, dominated, and I've worked on some teams where it's, roughly split, and I've worked on some teams which are mostly female. I don't think I've ever sort of noticed, particularly that there are more men than female, even though I assume and think there are. I don't think there's a particularly laddish culture at KPMG, particularly not at the level I'm at. I think even if you're sat in a room surrounded by sort of, men either above me or the same grade as me, it's not something where I've ever felt like I was sort of different or that my gender was sort of like an obvious elephant in the room. I think because particularly when you're on an audit team and you're working horrific hours at year end and everyone's slogging away till 1 a.m, you do sort of get like a real community feel. So there's not necessarily a barrier there.
That's really good, because I've never worked in that environment, but just obviously spoken over the years to tons and tons of people that are moving out of that environment, and that you sort of get this perception. I know, like, the hours can be really grueling at certain periods, but I just assume that it is a male-dominated environment. So it's really eye-opening for me to hear that it isn't, which is really good, and the fact that you're in that team environment is good. That sort of all in it together, because you've got to, otherwise how would you survive, really? Do you find, like, somebody else that I spoke to, she said that she felt that she had to just put her hand up a bit more if she wanted to get exposure to different things or more responsibility? I mean, have you ever found that at all? Or I know you work hard, and has it been more of a case of just being rewarded for the work that you do and getting recognised without having to ask for it?
I don't think so, no. I mean, as you know, I'm quite a sort of an out there, sort of bold person anyway. So I don't think I've ever really struggled to sort of like make myself heard and make myself known. And I think I've sort of had a mix of male and female managers, and my performance managers, who are the people who sort of decide your performance rating at interim and year end, have mostly been men. But I don't think that I've ever had to sort of push for anything more than I would if I was male. And I think that the performance systems in place at particularly at KPMG I can speak for, but I think also at the other Big Four are such that it's irrelevant what gender you are or what ethnicity you are, etc. It is purely performance based, and I think there are quite a lot of opportunities within audit, depending on what teams you work on, to sort of go overseas or to work on special projects and things like that. I think it's more of a case of you're in the right team at the right time and you have the right connections. I think having the right connections is a lot more important, and I don't think I've struggled to make connections more because I'm a woman. And I know you are, and that's one of the things I love about you, Rebecca, is you're not scared, but you're not like aggressive with it. You're just assertive, and you are who you are, and I think any person, regardless of whether they're male or female, I think that's a great attribute to have. And I guess obviously the last year has been like mental in terms of just everyone being at home and people seeing workloads increase and having to homeschool, all of that jazz. But I mean, hopefully we're coming out of it the other side. I mean, if there was anything that you could say, I think the pandemic has created opportunities for this or for that, anything really, it doesn't even have to be work. I mean, but is there anything you could say, I think this is good that's come out of it? I think that obviously people haven't been commuting, and people, haven't been sort of working late in the office and having, sort of been in a frantic office environment. I think people have had more of a chance to sort of reflect on like what they want to do and where they want to go, and that's particularly the case for me. So I've managed to sort of take a step back and think about like my career aspirations and what sort of thing I want to be doing. I think that's really important, because obviously if you work in an industry like external audit, you are sort of constantly on the go, and you can't really plan ahead. And I think having just like a little bit more of a breather has been really important for everyone.
And just, I know something that perhaps we haven't touched on before. But I mean, future aspirations. Do you see yourself? Do you want to be CFO in the future of a company? Do you want to be that number one person?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to sort of make it to senior leadership. And I think wherever I interviewed internally or externally, I would always sort of ask the question of, do you have female leadership? Is that something that obviously you have to be okay with it, but is that something which you promote? And yeah, I think that's really important. I think the only thing that I would say in terms of, I guess, sort of advice for women who are considering moving into finance or moving potentially into a different role is that every person that I speak to in senior leadership that's a woman has said that women tend to not apply for jobs that when they don't meet 100% of the job spec, whereas men are far more likely to apply for it. So just sort of channel your inner man and have the confidence to sort of look at roles which you're not entirely suited for, but you can grow into and you have the necessary skills to go into. And I think as a woman, that's something that, well, as women, that's something which we sort of struggle with more, and it holds us back a little bit.
Yeah, I've seen that somewhere actually, and it's really true. And it's just having that inner chat with yourself and going, do you know what? Go for it, because you can do it. Like, and even if it's a learning curve, I mean, nobody wants to move jobs to do exactly the same thing anyway. You want an element of growth, and you want something to aspire to as well. So no, I'm fully with you on that. Fantastic.
Yeah.